Just like a puppet some woman could have sex with.
What?
That movie we were talking about.
Oh.
How's that related to a glass of water?
Now I got a Google-aid pixelated sex puppet.
No, I sent you a picture.
All right, let's do this thing. Hey.
Let's do this.
Welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now. Just what you want someone to say when you're doing something they're supposedly enthusiastic about, right? Every time I get in bed with my wife. All right. Let's do this.
All right. Puppets ahoy. Let's do it.
Who's that puppet, honey? Welcome back to another episode of 1980s Now, a weekly examination of the importance of 1980s pop culture and its influence today. My name's Will, and joining me as always are my friends and co-hosts, Kat and John. Hello, guys.
Hi, guys.
Hello.
And don't forget, in addition to his co-hosting duties here, John also hosts his own podcast, Empire Gen X Grown Up, talking about the mud flaps, all that sort of stuff. I think I used that joke once before.
The mud? What?
Merchandising. Because, yeah, he's got some merchandise now on TeePublic, too.
Does it include mud flaps?
There's no reason it couldn't.
It could,
If you would like, we can set up a mud flap t-shirt.
could.
Just
That
for
could
you.
be exciting.
Well, I mean, you guys are truckers or trucker
That's
merch.
right.
descendants
Yeah.
of truckers. Hey, on today's show, we're going to be speaking with Brian Volk-Weiss. You remember him. We just spoke to him just a short time ago. He is the CEO and founder of the Nacelle company, a company that we're big fans of because they produce a number of different things that, just speak directly to the nostalgia buffs within us, producing products that are about the things that we love from our youths, including documentaries that talk about the films of that generation, like the Star Wars one that came out just a short time ago for Icons on Earth. And now we're going to be talking to him about another franchise that was born in the 1980s, The Simpsons. So Icons on Earth, The Simpsons.
Dope.
It's coming to an exciting, that's pretty good. An exciting conclusion this Wednesday, November 9th. And we're going to chat with Brian all about that series. His series and the Simpsons series.
And more, because you can always count on bonus information coming from BVW. I'm excited.
Hey, before that, though, we're going to review current news stories related to 1980s media, including how Elvira was double D listed, which horror franchise is getting a premakequel,
Oh.
and the demonic spirit that has possessed the truth. This is something that's really got my gander up. No. Got my dander up.
It's good for the goose. It's good for the dander. That's what I always say.
That's where I get it from. You got to stop saying that. You're incepting me. There's time codes in the show notes if you'd like to skip around. Hey, before that, a brief announcement. Damn it, that's what that means? No, a brief announcement. One of them says Bing and one of them says Chime. I don't... Could I have made it clearer to myself?
You could put announcement on it. I mean, why be so ambiguous?
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, yeah.
That is true. Yeah,
Bing,
I'll
ding,
change that.
chime, and dong.
Yeah, that's dumb.
He's a sound guy. He's just...
Right.
Hey,
On the wrong answer, he's just a picture of my face, so he knows that one's always right. Grrk.
there we go. Hey, we've got here it is. In a brief announcement, look, we have another book to give away here.
Ooh.
This book has not yet been released, but the publishers were kind enough to send us a copy. It's called The Kick-Ass Book of Cobra Kai, an official behind-the-scenes companion, and we want to give it away to you. So it's going to be available for sale on November 15th. You could pre-order it, of course, and if you do so, do me a favor and go to bookshop.org. Skip Amazon. Go to bookshop.org. It's an organization that helps you support local bookstores. As far as you know, it's going to be the same experience. You can pick out a book. It's got the website's very similar and great. But you'll help keep these smaller stores that compete with Amazon in business. But anyway, Kick-Ass Book of Cobra Kai.
Nice.
So follow up. Just like the Ralph Macchio book, which coincidentally, of course, is related to Cobra Kai. I don't know how we're going to give it away, but probably some way simple. Follow us on Facebook, 1980s Now, and we'll let you know there. All right, that's it. Okay, so hey, let's get caught up on 1980s news. Hey, this week on 1980s news, as reported by MassivelyOP.com, Adventure Quest 3D was temporarily delisted from app stores because of, Elvira's breasts. So fans of Adventure Quest 3D on mobile may have been surprised at the MMORPG's delisting from app stores, but developer Ardix Entertainment has an explanation. Elvira, the infamous Mistress of the Dark, And the host of the game's 20th anniversary event has boobs. That's the only reason they delisted.
Whoa.
It's not specifically the possession of them. It's how they are presented.
Oh, I see. Not that they exist.
Not that they just exist.
I realized I should have said there was 2 reasons that it was. How far can I take
2
this?
big reasons.
Now, I got to say, look, we can make these comments about Elvira's breasts because I think she does herself. You know, I mean, it's a focal point of her comedy for decades now.
Yep, she's on board, I think.
You think? You don't know?
No. I think she'd be fine with you making comments right now.
Right. Yeah.
We haven't checked with her about Will's usage, but we're pretty sure she'd be okay with it.
You guys had a nice chat. Gosh, was that not quite a year ago? Trying to remember.
It was last October. I looked it up for some reason. It was last October, I believe.
Wait,
October?
Wasn't it supposed to be October? But then it was delayed a little bit.
Yeah.
So about 11 months ago.
So I've got the pictures here for you so you can see what the big scandal is about here. Let's see.
The big scandal. Yeah.
What do you mean, Kat? What are you talking about? Oh, because it was a large scandal. That's what you mean?
Right.
It was 2 scandals.
2 scandals.
All right, now you guys are just milking my joke.
Oh.
All right, so look, here's the picture that was originally posted, and folks, if you want to check this out, you can see it on YouTube here.
That's it?
Yeah, so this is what the big hullabaloo is about. It's a cartoon drawing of Elvira, and it's a pretty simple drawing of her, and her cleavage is displayed much in the way that it is in the live action photos of Elvira.
Yes.
Well, so apparently. So Google, Apple Store, they all took it down because of this image. Okay. Apple, all on its own, decided to bring it back with a modified version of this. What they did was they moved Elvira. They just shifted her over to our left enough that you couldn't see any cleavage. I think you could see side boob a little bit, but not cleavage.
I'm so confused. How do
that
you
might be
slide
even
her?
more titillating.
Oh my god! Oh my god!
That's your turn, Kat.
How do you slide her?
When they showed the image, they cropped it. I should say cropped it. They cropped it in such a way that just to the right of her cleavage, which is that the cleavage being the separation between the 2 bosoms, was cut off. So you really just saw part of, one breast. Anyway, but Google took it off altogether, and then ultimately the company submitted a new graphic to get it back up. And so these stores now have it back up. Apple actually has this image now, the one with the full, full view of her gifts. And the company, though, submitted this one, which is the one that Google and other stores have. So they just...
Oh, see? That's only Elvira because it says Elvira.
Right.
And her hair. Okay, fine. Like her hair. But,
they've placed her name over the most identifying feature of Elvira.
In 2022, is this the kind of stuff we're worried about?
No, I don't think so. Developers did nothing wrong. You said it's a standard image of Elvira.
Yes.
And if you had forgotten what she looks like, then you should say thanks for the memories.
I think John's winning now this round. The sensitivity has got to be like, we don't want to expose children to these things, right? That's always
to these things.
We don't want to expose children to sexual things generally, what folks associate with sexual. But
right.
There's so many things about that. One, breasts can just be breasts too.
Yes, they can just be
a part of anatomy. They're a natural thing. It's just. And I guarantee there's a bunch of stuff on there that kids have easy access to. They have no business having access to that isn't policed by Google and Apple and these other places in the way this is.
It's just a cartoon representing a fantasy horror humorous character that is well established in the world that they can see anywhere. They could see on a bus, the side of a bus. They could see on a billboard. They could see anywhere. Yeah. Knee-jerk reaction didn't make a lot of sense when I read it.
Although maybe it brought more attention to the game, and people are, I want to check this out.
We wouldn't be talking about the game if not for the scandal, would we?
Exactly.
That's true. Look, I love Elvira, but she's constantly involved in things. We'd be reporting these would be like Elvira news if we did talk about every other story that she was involved in. Hey, in other 1980s news, as reported by Deadline and Fangoria, a Friday the 13th prequel series has been ordered. So last week the news broke that Brian Fuller, the creator of Hannibal, Pushing Daisies. Oh, John, he's the co-creator of Star Trek Discovery. Brian Fuller.
Yep.
It was announced that he would be bringing a Friday this sequel series called Crystal Lake to NBC's Peacock. streaming service. Now, if you remember, it wasn't too long ago that we talked about the legal battle that was going on in connection with Friday the 13th, because you had two sides that were lined up, essentially. You had Sean Cunningham, who is the director and producer of the original film. And on the other side, you had Victor Miller, who was the screenwriter of the original film. And what happened was certain rights to the original film expired, and so the screenwriter was arguing, I should get those back.
Right.
And there was a period of time where in limbo, because it wasn't clear who had the rights, what we were understanding, at least what it could be, is that Victor Miller had rights to what he created, which is, if you remember, again, we just talked about this on trivia, Mrs. Voorhees as the murderer.
Yes.
Jason making a cameo, essentially, in the last 2 minutes of the film, or 30 seconds.
Right.
Yes.
And Sean Cunningham, later on in the series, playing a role in creating the hockey masked villain that eventually, dominates the whole franchise.
Okay.
So it was like a point where, they couldn't have Jason because, Victor Miller created him, but Victor Miller couldn't have his Jason, who was only a child, wearing the hockey mask. So anyway, the good news is that the case was settled in the Second U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals earlier this summer, I think it was. And it seems like the folks are now coming to an agreement because, but for them getting along, you couldn't have a series like this.
Right.
Where's the names?
I love when Will looks for things.
Oh, here you go. Okay, so now you've got Victor Miller, who, as I mentioned, wrote the original screenplay of the 1980 film, Mark Turberoff, who's Miller's copyright attorney, and Rob, I'm going to say Barsamian, who produced the original movie, are all executive producing this new series. So you've got a lot of folks who weren't agreeing, several months ago. And I think this battle's been going on for like a decade or something. It's been several years.
Wow.
And like I said, it was recently resolved. When asked by Fangoria's Scott Wambler, again, I'm probably screwing up his name too, how far back the prequel would go, Fuller responded, I don't think I'm allowed to say that just yet, but I would say it's less a prequel than a pre-remakequel series.
Kind of a tongue twister.
Making up words to prove that he doesn't really know exactly what it's going to be.
Yeah. Or instead of saying, reboot, which scares everybody,
right.
or remake.
Oh, yeah. But the word "re" is in there. I heard it.
I have a good feeling about this, and it's partially because of the creators, because I trust the creators that are involved in this.
All right.
But I had a really good experience with a very similar pre-makequel that came out mid-2010s. Okay. Bates Motel.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I remember that show.
That was an amazing series that centered around Norman Bates and his mom living in the house, and they opened up the hotel. And it's before things crumbled to the point that they were in the film, so you get to see the people become the people that became the horror icons.
Gotcha.
I was doubtful of Bates Motel, and that turned out to be really cool as a character study of how did he get this way? How did his mom treat him that made him, mummify her in the attic? And it was really good, and it led up to it really well.
Yeah. Okay, John. Hey, if it goes that way, that would be great. And that also then for me explains why then with regard, when asked about whether or not Jason could appear in the show, because as we know, if you're talking about a prequel, in short, the story of the film is, Jason is supposedly drowned at Crystal Lake by some camp counselors. And then it's something like, I think a decade later, or maybe I think that was supposed to be 59. Is that 59 or 69? Anyway, some years later, when the camp is being reopened, his mom goes there and starts killing the new counselors off. So if he's a kid, by the time he drowns, a prequel would have him being, he's going to be an infant or a toddler.
Right.
Well, he was in his teens, I think, right?
Okay.
When he drowned.
Yeah, he'd be at camp, so maybe 13 or so.
His camp in his teens, right?
Attendee.
Right. So the show could open with Mrs. Voorhees taking an 8-year-old Jason to hockey practice.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, when asked about whether or not Jason would appear, Fuller says that, quote, over the course of the series, we will see many familiar manifestations of Jason. So, end quote. So, yeah, I guess I guess maybe different stages or flashbacks, flash forwards, or growing.
Put me in the writer's room. I can think of amazing ways to address this, because just like Bates Motel, all you've got to do is, we've seen Mrs. Voorhees as the killer. What instead you need to see is Mrs. Voorhees, how much she loves her son to the point where he drowns because of neglect. She will do anything to avenge his death. And then she becomes a heroic villain. It could change the complexion of the first film if you have compassion for the killer. She's not in the right.
Yeah.
But you can see her motivation. And motivation and how a monster is thinking so much adds to the complexity and depth of a monster like that. It's
definitely
great potential.
Yeah.
Could you do a whole show like this that sort of gives that backstory, like you're saying, John, and skip the backstory that explains how you could have him appear at the end of the first film, be alive, so to speak, and then continue to terrorize people for, 10, 20 years after that. You'd have to explain the supernatural. You skip that.
Yeah.
All right. You may remember us talking about Brian Fuller not too long ago in the context of reboots and remakes because as of December 2021, Fuller was still slated to reboot Stephen King's Christine.
Oh.
But I can't find a scrap of news about that on the internet anywhere. And
unnecessary.
it's curious as to how these folks that are interviewing him, including Scott Wambler, who hosts the King Cast, I think it's called. It's this podcast dedicated to Stephen King. He didn't ask, what's up with Christine if you're doing this one now? You're moving on to Friday the 13th.
Would you see how the car was built? See where the tires were made?
Well, no, it wasn't necessarily a prequel. It was just a remake. Yeah,
okay. Gotcha.
It's gung ho. It takes place at a car factory in the 1980s.
What a crossover!
Essentially gung ho. Yeah. Okay. Hey, another 1980s news. And speaking of Brian Volk-Weiss, with whom we're going to be chatting in just a few minutes, the Nacelle company's just launched a 24-hour nostalgia channel. This sounds like. Something right up our alley here.
Wow.
I need more things to watch. Yeah. This sounds great.
Yeah, please.
If you love documentaries and you love nostalgia, well, this is perfect for you because,
damn it,
Nacelle, again, maybe we didn't remind folks about this at the beginning, but it's the studio that brought us the movies that made us, the toys that made us.
Yeah.
Center Seat, which I know John
Star Trek thing.
Star Trek one.
Yeah. Toy Store Near You was a great series they did. So many awesome things. Yeah.
Ooh.
So they just launched just last week Nacelle Pop. They're calling it. It's a 24/7 streaming channel that is exclusively available on Amazon Freevee, which apparently that's a channel formerly known as IMDb TV, but it's a free streaming service. So anybody could have access to it. There's a number of ways you can get it. I have access to it through Amazon Prime.
Okay.
But it's going to feature carefully curated pop culture focused documentaries, animated series, classic TV shows, ones that are all but impossible to find.
Wow.
Including the notable titles that the Nacelle companies created themselves, those ones we mentioned.
Yep.
Maybe we could ask Brian about whether or not, 1980s now and Gen X grown up could
have a slot. Give us a time slot.
A lot of 24/7. That's a lot.
Tuesdays at 3:30 a.m. till 3:45 a.m. Do whatever you want.
I did have, you remind me, I did have an internet radio channel reach out to us once. It was like, we're going to put you on at Sundays at 2 a.m. I was like, we're good. We're fine.
We heard that same thing. It's we need to fill content. We could, no.
And then you listen to the other shows on their radio and it's all garbage. Oh, why are you at 2 a.m.? All right. Hey, in other 1980s news, Tim Burton finally announces Johnny Depp in Beetlejuice 2. And let me explain why that's complete and utter bullshit. This is driving me crazy. Look, that is a real headline from, just this couple of weeks ago here. So,
wow.
And this just drives me crazy. We've talked about Doomcock. We've talked about Giant Freaking Robot. We know we live in this post-truth world where it's, in many ways, we've got folks, certainly in the political arena, that just have decided to deny the existence of actual things and make up other things that, with no proof, they'd rather believe than other shit that's right in front of them with evidence. It's sad. But now it's affecting.
No idea what you're talking about.
No, I'll send you a link.
No, please don't send me.
Probably get a virus immediately.
Don't send me any.
But now it's affecting what we love too: pop culture. So, like I said, there's all these sites that have been doing this for a while that I've complained about before. But here you go. Look, I want to say it was my wife sent this to me. She was like, "Oh my God, did you hear about this? Johnny Depp is in Beetlejuice." And I was like, So, Social Junkie. I don't know what that is, but the name that their garbage is right in the name of their website right there. Junk. Just a couple of weeks ago reported official Tim Burton finally announces Johnny Depp in Beetlejuice 2 movie.
Okay.
Quote, fans are rejoicing after Tim Burton confirmed Beetlejuice 2 in a recent interview, saying, and then they go on to quote a story from 2016. Now, when I dug up the story from 2016, this quote, recent interview, is actually sourced I think it was on Giant Freaking Robot. It's one of those sites I just told you is a bunch of bullshit. It's from a secondhand anonymous source that says Tim Burton told them this.
Is this just a circle of sites eating one another's waste and then depositing as new headlines?
It's a human centipede.
Right.
Yeah, news reporting.
Yes.
And in 2016, a few hours after this quote-unquote story broke, Tim Burton's representatives were already out there denying this, saying, quote, Tim Burton did not confirm Beetlejuice 2. As the movie is not in development, end quote. Okay, so how now we've also got Johnny Depp in this movie that actually turns out really isn't going forward.
Right.
Well, I shouldn't say going forward.
Why is
Tim
this
Burton.
news again?
Yeah. Now, we did report earlier this year that Brad Pitt's company had it in development. But that's it. No one's attached to it. Nobody, not even Tim Burton.
Right. Yeah.
So I started digging, like, why would they even think that Tim Burton or Johnny Depp is now in this movie that we know very little about?
Because Johnny Depp is in every Tim Burton movie. That's
he's linked to Tim Burton.
But he didn't officially announce it like this headline says. So, So in May of this year, the earliest site I could find, I shouldn't even give the names of these sites because it's just giving them mentions for their bullshit. But something called National Post wrote that fans have flooded social media with the claim that Johnny Depp will be in Beetlejuice after they noticed the embattled actor's name seemed to appear on a call sheet found when they said they searched for the upcoming Beetlejuice 2 on Google. So they're reporting what people are saying based on what they saw on a Google search.
Right.
That's not news.
That's no.
Hashtag Beetledepp. No, that's not.
I was going to say Depp juice, but that sounds weird.
Oh, no. No, please, no.
That's an Amber Heard cocktail you're thinking
of. Well, after digging into this, it seems like the quote call sheet was in fact what you got on IMDb. So if you search for Beetlejuice 2, the IMDb page came up with this cast and director. Now, IMDb is just like Wikipedia. It's crowdsourced.
It is. Anybody can put anything in it.
I think you need to sign up for an account, but that's it, you know? I've got an IMDb page. For one, I wrote an episode on a web series my friend had 10 years ago, and I've got a page. I shouldn't have said that. I'm going to take that out because I don't want people putting fake credits on that. They're going to say I was in some puppet movie having sex with a woman or...
You were the puppet.
I was the puppet. I mean, if you're in that movie, you want to be the puppet at least, right? You have an excuse. I mean, it's not a whole lot of work for puppets. Anyway, sorry. So back to this story where Tim Burton officially confirmed Johnny Depp is in Beetlejuice 2 movie. Well, okay. So meanwhile, at the same time, this story is coming out that Tim Burton officially announces Johnny Depp's in Beetlejuice 2. At a masterclass on October 21st, Burton suggested that he had no plans to get involved in the reboot.
But even that isn't verification that he will or won't.
Yeah.
It's just, look, I have no plans right now.
He had no plans.
And in fact, the next day, while speaking at a press conference at the Lumiere Festival in Lyon, he seemed to Lyon? I don't know. He seemed to backtrack saying, quote, nothing's out of the question. I only know if I'm making a film when I'm out actually on the set shooting it. We'll see how it goes. How's that for a non-answer? So nobody knows. And certainly Johnny Depp's not it in the very least. It's just garbage. Just ticks me
And if
off.
he is, I'm not watching it.
Yeah, no kidding.
All right. There you go.
I have nothing against Johnny Depp. He's just not Beetlejuice. That's
no, right. No. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess we don't know if they were suggesting he was going to play Beetlejuice.
What else why would you put him in the movie? So he's gonna.
Well, I know Michael Keaton wanted to do it still, but I don't know.
Oh,
who knows?
okay.
Who knows?
All right.
Who knows? It's just dumb.
Right.
I will show you this though. I did mean to show you this. When I searched for Beetlejuice 2 on IMDb, including the bullshit one that these people referred to as a call sheet, was this one. This is another version of Beetlejuice 2 that supposedly came out in 2014. It says he's back in a hilarious side-splitting sequel to the 1988 blockbuster. Now, according to this one, Ryan Perez directed it, and it stars Natasha Lyonne of A Russian Doll as Beetlejuice.
Okay.
I love the only comment on here is someone that says, this is the worst movie I have never seen. Not only is it a waste of time, but every moment of it not existing is a waste of time. demanded from your local director.
If you're going to make a Beetlejuice sequel, wouldn't it be called Beetlejuicier? I think it should be.
That's perfect.
So perfect. Let's end the news. All right. That was 1980s news. Hey, our independent podcast is brought to you every week by folks just like you. So if you'd like to help us out, please follow us on the podcast platform you're listening to right now. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Share an episode on Facebook. All of these actions just take a moment and are 100% free. But if you'd like to chuck in a buck and help us keep publishing the show week after week, please visit us at 1980snow.com/support to find out how you can send us $1 or $2. And thank you so much. It means a lot. All right. Hey. So in a moment, we're going to be speaking with Brian Volk-Weiss, CEO and founder of Nacelle Company, and also the director of this particular docu-series that we're going to talk about, Icons Unearthed, The Simpsons.
An all-around great guy to talk to, by the way.
So,
spoiler alert.
Look, we're going to be talking about The Simpsons with Brian. So be honest. Fans, have you seen it? Did you watch it? Did you watch it since the 80s? Have you seen it since?
I enjoyed The Simpsons.
Yeah.
As we know, I wasn't really watching TV in the 80s, as I've mentioned before, but I've definitely seen things. It's been on, and I'm totally familiar with all the characters. My brother was a huge fan. So there was all manner of Simpsons paraphernalia around our house.
He was running around saying, "Eat my shorts." And cowabunga, dude.
Don't have a cow, man.
Absolutely. And I quote Homer Simpson a fair amount. I say, don't.
Oh, that's true. She does do that.
Do that.
Everybody does that. Don't has become part of the lexicon. That's because of the enduring impact on society that The Simpsons has had. You don't have to be watching it regularly to know dough and don't have a cow, man, and it's seeped in. And and for me too, Kat. I've not watched it religiously in more than a decade. I watched it a lot, probably in the 90s. That was when you only had 4 networks, and Fox was one of them, and there were cool shows on Fox, so I would watch The Simpsons. But when the landscape of television started spreading, my focus moved on. I think there was a large consensus that the writing in The Simpsons kind of dipped out of the first 7-8 years. We'll talk about the golden days of it, but I've watched a few recently, and it's still some well-written television, even if you don't watch it every day. Yeah.
I was a fan. If you folks you don't remember, look, you should just watch this docuseries.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing that I think even if you're not a fan of The Simpsons, it's a fascinating tale of how it came together.
I love that. I love origin story stuff. And sorry to interrupt. No. But yes, I've begun watching it. I'm not through it yet. But I just love finding out, like, well, how did this come about? All the little details that go into the making of something.
And it's insane really cool. Because you would never suspect this thing that's a juggernaut financially for the Fox, company.
Right.
Was like by a ragtag group of, offbeat punk rock type guys just kind of figuring it out because they had to.
I love that.
I can relate. Yeah. I'm there right now. It's great.
That's right.
Yeah. I'm ragtagging it.
You're right. You're so ragtag.
I'm also commandoing it. Or what is that?
That goes without saying.
No, that was when you guys were wearing your costumes last week.
That's right.
Commandoing.
You talked about not wearing pants.
It was too hot. Right.
And
look, we'll probably talk with Brian about some of these things. So, and you should watch the show for certainly more detail than we can provide, and folks know. So, but it started on the Tracy Ullman show as these little interstitials that were intended to break up the sketches in much the same way that Terry Gilliam's animation did for the Monty Python's Flying Circus. I remember seeing it then and already being like sort of intrigued by, sort of how it wasn't my parents' family sitcom sort of presentation, because it was this kind of, it was more like how the people we knew and lived with, where the father would say really what was on his mind. And sometimes it was that he wanted to strangle his kid.
And some of the characters were very different when they were first on the Tracy Ullman show, but it was already very irreverent. And it was, as you said, it was not Leave It to Beaver. It was not, My Three Sons. It was a kind of dysfunctional family that still kind of loved each other. But I think even most of they loved each other didn't come until this series. It was just kind of a dysfunctional cartoon family that was mean to one another. Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. And I think I had started watching it then when it aired. If the first episode aired at the end of 1989, it was a Christmas episode. And it's cool. They tell you in the docuseries why that is. Maybe that's even a spoiler in a sense. But I don't know if I want to share the story. Maybe because it's kind of a bummer, but maybe it's not a bummer. But I watched it every episode. Every Sunday. It eventually became a Sunday night thing, and I'd watch it every Sunday. Yeah. And through my daughter being born, my oldest daughter, and then when she was too little to know what we were watching, but she started getting of an age like 2, 3, 4 years old, 3.5, where it became problematic for her to see like Itchy and Scratchy on an episode. Maybe this explains it all. My then wife, it doesn't explain anything. My then wife was, you can't let our child see this. And I was like, well, yeah, I shouldn't let her do that. But it was kind of our thing. Sunday nights, we'd have, I don't know, a little snack and she'd go right to bed after that.
I just had an epiphany. Is this why your daughter is named Santa's Little Helper?
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
Amazing. Right. I never made that connection.
No. Most people don't get that because we just call her Santy. But when my wife and I, my first wife I'm talking about, when we separated, I stopped watching The Simpsons.
Oh, no.
When I couldn't watch it with my daughter, I haven't watched a new episode of it since.
Wow.
So that's been, I don't know, 15 years, 15 plus years.
Yeah.
It could be time to watch it again. I'm sure it's really good. Anyway, why would I say it's? I just brought the whole show down. So let's bring the show back up.
Thank you for sharing.
So The Simpsons is the longest running animated series, longest running, certainly American sitcom, longest running scripted primetime television series, 734 episodes, at least as of the last time Wikipedia was updated.
There's no way I can catch up.
Yeah.
No way.
I mean, I would imagine you guys have seen some number of the shows at least.
Yep.
Some
number.
Yeah. Well, that's
some number, yeah.
Well,
nowhere near what you guys have seen.
That's perfect because once again, it's time to play.
Oh, no.
Be more funny.
Look, I just wanted to do this. Just to do it.
I'm excited but worried.
You don't have to be worried. John, do not worry, John.
Here come the lawyer questions.
I've got 10. Stop that. No. John, at some point, John's going to have his friend, the attorney, be there with him. Like, he just starts moving in. Yes, I'll.
Can I have a sidebar? He can whisper in my ear.
Yeah. He's going to pop out mic from behind his background. Yeah.
I've been advised to have no answer.
Yeah. I'm not going to be participating in the game this week. All right, so here's what I have. I have 10 episode summaries for Simpsons.
Okay.
Oh, boy.
5 of them are real.
Oh, okay.
5 of them, I asked an AI to write a summary for a Simpson episode, and this is what I got.
You really did?
Yeah.
Oh, my gosh.
Now, you tell me if this is oh, my gosh. I think you guys are going to do fine. All right, here we go. Here's the summary of the first one.
Okay.
Marge.
Now, are we ping-ponging these? Or are we both guessing? What's the rules here?
Let's go back and forth. Let's ping pong.
Back and forth.
Okay, ping pong.
All right.
Pong.
Marge has to, let's say John goes first. Marge has to spend the family's Christmas savings to remove a tattoo Bart thought would make a great Christmas present.
I've seen it, I think. I think it's real.
That's right.
Nice.
That's actually the first episut to air from season 1, episode 1, Simpsons Roasting on an Open Fire. And the docuseries explains why, like I said, that was the first episode. It's kind of a cool story. All right, Kat, here, you got one here too, Kat. Okay. While bathing, Mr. Burns almost kills himself and chooses to find an heir.
No, I think that's AI.
It's a real one.
Oh, no.
And that was season 5, episode 18, Burns' heir. I think you're going to recognize the AI ones.
Oh,
all right, John.
Okay.
Here is another Simpsons episode summary.
I'm ready.
After a visit with a bear who looks like Tom Jones in a superhero movie, Homer decides to get Marge a new, more powerful disability.
I call shenanigans. I think that's AI.
That's right. That was AI.
That sounded like Mad Libs.
I think it was a good AI.
I'm going to need an adjective and an action word.
All right, Kat, here you go. Yeah. Homer and Marge go out together after Marge feels Homer takes her for granted.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, that's right.
That sounds like a lot of Simpsons episodes. I feel like we've done that one many times.
Oh, and that was season 1, episode 13, Some Enchanted Evening. All right, John, here you go. Homer and Marge's bond becomes strong after a prank they captured on camera causes the church to lose their Christmas money.
It's certainly not one I've seen before. It doesn't sound out of the realm of possibility, so I'm going to guess it's real.
Oh, no.
I would have said the same
Could have
thing.
been. I could see that.
Yeah. All right, Kat, here you go. Homer promises Marge not to hire him as her dental plan until he gets her a job as a driver for a Chinese travel agency.
Oh, that has to be AI.
Yeah, that's
has
AI.
to be. Okay. Phew.
All right, John, here you go. We got
Yes,
two, okay.
okay.
We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, jeez. We got. Should I have said 10? I should have said 3 or 4.
Oops.
We could just see that was it. All right, here, John. Here we go. Is this AI or a Real Simpsons episode? A new app lets people trick Santa into giving them a gift by tricking him into giving it back.
That sounds really confusing, so I'm going to say AI.
That's right. It's AI.
So the more baffled we feel, the more likely.
Well, the other one kind of I could see because there was actually a scenario. This one just because of a jumble of words. It was Mad Libs, like you said, Kat.
Yeah, Homer makes up for his latest example of fatherly ineptitude by purchasing Lisa the one thing she's always wanted, a pony.
This has to be true. It sounds like.
That's right.
Love it.
That's season 8, episode 3, Lisa's pony.
Did he really get her a
Simpsons
pony?
did it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Is this even anything? I don't know if this is anything.
It's
Yeah.
Oh, we got
This is
two more
amusing.
left here. We got 2
We're
more
tied.
left here.
Okay.
John, to get out of cleaning a highway as part of community service, Homer fakes his own death.
I want that to be true. I want it to be true.
Yeah, that's a real one.
Why does Homer have to serve community service?
yeah,
I mean,
well,
it doesn't surprise
There's
me.
plenty
but-
of reasons.
Yeah, true. Yeah.
So yeah, okay, Kat, here is the final one here. Is this a Real Simpson story, a run written by an AI? To enlist the help of Mark Cuban, Homer mentors Lisa, who is subletting a fish farm. But when the fish farm is closed by decree, Homer mentors Lisa and becomes distraught when she fails.
You know it's true. Look how long it was.
I'm going to say it's true.
It did have a lot of detail.
All right, hey, we asked a couple
much.
folks on the internet or on socials what they thought about The Simpsons, and George writes, worst ride at Universal. That's kind of true.
It's technically an answer to your question.
Yeah,
I
and I guess
don't know that I went on it. What's the ride like?
you know what they did? They took the Back to the Future. Have you ever been to Universal Studios?
Yeah.
You remember the Back to the Future ride they had? We were in a DeLorean, you'd go on a time traveling sort of adventure. They took that and made it garbage.
Oh, wow.
So now you're in a car, and instead of it being like semi-realistic looking images, you're in a cartoon. It's fine.
Yeah.
It's for kids.
Is the one like projection all around you kind of thing? Is that-
exactly. Yeah.
I
It's
thought
like
so, yeah.
whatever half of a 720, like 360, I guess, sort of.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Cubed or squared. I don't know, whatever. And Kyle writes, phone this friend if you need backup. He's talking about us talking about The Simpsons.
Oh.
I started memorizing episodes as early as I could. So the Christmas episode on Fox. So there you go. I guess since the
Why
very beginning.
didn't you tell me about Kyle before we did that quiz? I needed to phone him.
Ring, ring. Have they ever enlisted the help of Mark Cuban and leased a fish farm?
Oh, I should have did it. I should have done that just so you guys would be in that situation. Yes. Oh, damn it. All right, do it.
Final answer.
All right, hey, in a moment we'll be right back with our guest, Brian Volk-Weiss.
Awesome.
I came here in a time machine that you invented. Now I need your help to get back to the year 1980.
Our guest today is the founder and CEO of the Nacelle Company, a company that continues to find new ways to introduce us to so many of the things that we loved in our youths. They're the folks that brought us the wildly popular Netflix shows The Toys That Made Us and its spin-off The Movies That Made Us. Well, once again, our guest and his talented team have provided a fascinating and entertaining look at another favorite from our childhood. The finale for his latest documentary series, Icons Unearthed, The Simpsons, airs this Wednesday, November 7th. You can see it and binge all the previous episodes on Vice TV through your cable provider. Please welcome back to the show, Brian Volk-Weiss.
Good to be back. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's good to see you again.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last time we spoke about Star Wars, and folks should go, that was not too long ago because you did Icons Unearthed documentary about Star Wars. Fantastic documentary. And any folks who want to you should go listen to it, because at that time we asked you a lot of questions, not only about the history of Star Wars too, but some of the sausage making questions that just sort of fascinated us about how you arrived at the particular style of documentary that you seemed aptly suited to create and have perfected.
Thank you.
But we're here to talk instead about a different series, because this Wednesday, November 9th, is the finale of Icons Unearthed, The Simpsons. The Star Wars, look, to me, that's it's just a no-brainer. Sort of, the impact it's had on film generally, but certain science fiction. But why The Simpsons? Is The Simpsons the equivalent in its own field of animated sitcoms?
So just before we talk about The Simpsons, I feel like I need to do a public service announcement to you guys and anybody listening. If for any reason, I won't get into details, you got a little beaten up on Star Wars this year, and for some reason you got beaten up and you've given up and you're not even bothering with Andor. Andor is the best Star Wars possibly ever made. It's up there with Empire Strikes Back. It might be the greatest television show ever made. So that's bold. No one's talking about it. And yes, it starts slow. So don't give up halfway through episode 2. Yeah. By episode 4, it is the best Star Wars maybe ever made. So I need to say that. Wow. Anyway.
Yeah, no, we agree. And we agree. We love Andor. Absolutely. 100%.
Are watching it.
Well, I think, and I put Rogue One above some of the other Star Wars films, including some of the originals.
I think people were just beaten up by Boba Fett and Obi-Wan. And I almost didn't even check out Andor. Like, I kind of just was like, I'll try. And so anyone who's just feels beaten up as a Star Wars fan, don't give up. Andor is here. Watch it. Anyway. Simpsons. So it's very interesting. Obviously, starting with Toys That Made Us, there is an understandable point of view that I love everything we talk about, and that is not accurate. I'm very open and very honest that until Toys That Made Us, I was not a Simpsons fan, or sorry, He-Man fan.
Right.
And I mean, I didn't know anything about My Little Pony. Of all the toys we've covered, if there is any toy that I didn't own any He-Man when Toys That Made Us was greenlit. And by the time it was done shooting, I probably had 10 figures and vehicles. Now I probably have over 50. Power Rangers never stuck. Never stuck. Yep. I didn't get it. I don't get it. It's just not for me. So I'm always very honest that certain things appeal to me more than others. And very often, as I said with He-Man, I will be working on something and that will turn me into a fan. Simpsons is one of those things. I have always liked Simpsons. I have always respected Simpsons. I've conservatively seen 80 or 90 episodes, which if it were any other show would be a lot. But because it's The Simpsons, I think I've only seen the 0.9% of how many episodes they've made. But our goal is to pick things, and we've been using this criteria since season 1 of Toys That Made Us. It has to be a multi-generational thing. So at least 2 generations, if not 3. There has to be a character from that thing that if there was a Mount Rushmore of pop culture, there could be one of their characters on the Mount Rushmore that nobody needs to be told who it is. No Teddy Roosevelt. I've never. That is literally the first time I've ever made that joke. That's actually, and I've been talking about this.
I've got Teddy's people on the line. They're upset.
So we have these rules, and there has to be a good story. Like, there's a couple things out there that are really successful that somebody had an idea, they made it, they put it out, it was a grand slam. And that's great for all the people that get money from that, but it's not a good thing to make a documentary about. So when we were choosing the next season of Icons Unearthed, it really was, we've never done anything animated. it's The Simpsons. How can we call ourselves icons on Earth and not use the longest running show of all time?
With regard to story, you know, I know you must, and again, I'm not going to get too far into the process of it because we talked about that once before, but I don't know, we touched on this. Certainly you record. Well, I guess at what point do you know you have a story? Because I imagine at some point during the actual production, you've got hundreds of hours of interviews that you realize there's other arcs and other points.
I wish it was hundreds of hours.
Okay. Thousands? Tens of thousands?
Thousands of hours.
Mm-hmm.
And you personally are going through it, of course.
No, absolutely not. I know you're joking, but
yes.
I don't joke about that because it's not that I feel bad because it's how the process works, but I represent a team of about 30 people that make these shows. And I do an important role, don't get me wrong, but there are plenty of people doing equally important roles that don't get to talk to nice people like you know, every couple months. So I'm not there for every interview. So I'm an important part, but I am far from the only important part. But to answer your question, sorry. Before the red button gets hit the first time on the camera for the first interview, we have done at a minimum 4 months of research.
Wow. Okay.
And the research also includes pre-interviews. So 9 out of 10 interviews that you see on television, we have interviewed that person twice before that interview, and we taped the second one. So all of that, and between toys that made us, movies that made us, and everything we've ever done, we have only once greenlit something and then ungreenlit it because during the research phase, we realized we couldn't make a show.
Wow. So I've been a fan of The Simpsons since the beginning. In fact, I was a fan of Tracy Ullman before I was a fan of The Simpsons. But and I remembered that they were interstitials on the show at the time. What I didn't remember, though, was the landscape of television as it was at the time that we even had the Fox network. Can you explain, you know, how sort of crucial Simpsons was in this landscape, in this sort of, I guess, for the fledgling Fox network at this time?
Well, basically Rupert Murdoch decides, and by the way, I mean, he's the guy who did what people have been talking about doing for 30 years. So, I mean, Paramount almost did their own network in the 80s.
Right. The UPN, sure.
So there was always talk, why are there only 3 networks? Right. So Rupert did the plunge, and he took the money he had from his father's newspaper empire that he had grown. He already owned Fox, the movie studio. So he was like, let me do a network. So he starts the network. He hires really good people like Barry Diller. And basically they knew they had to do things different because they didn't have the money to go out and go toe to toe at NBC, CBS, or ABC. So what they basically did was, and by the way, many people have tried this model. It almost never works. Fox is one of the only companies that ever, if you want to see the control experiment to Fox, Eli Samaha had this company called Franchise Films, which among other gems gave us the classic film Battlefield Earth. Literally every movie they made lost money. Except the first movie they made was The Whole 9 Yards with Bruce Willis. That is the only film. They made about 50 movies. The first film, profitable. The next 49 lost money. Wow. And that's normal because the model that Fox used, which Franchise Pictures also used, was they went to the creators that were massively successful and said, what's the idea that you love that no network would touch? And that was their model. That answers the first question, who Fox was at the time. Your second question, it really was Simpsons and Married with Children. So it's not fair to just only credit Simpsons. Married with Children was also a monster hit.
And this new season covers that a lot. You give plenty of credit where credit is due to those shows as well. Yeah.
Those were the things that Because what a lot of people don't understand about these big companies and people like Rupert Murdoch, they know they're taking a big risk. They know they're jumping into the deep end of the pool, and they have the confidence to do it, but they're not morons. So there is a clock. So my guess is Rupert probably was like, I'll try this for 5 years, maybe 6. And if it doesn't work, I'll shut it down. And it was Simpsons in particular, with an honorable mention for Married with Children, that proves there's no better way to describe this theory than the line from Predator: if it bleeds, we can kill it. Basically, Rupert Murdoch was able to see, we launched with 30 shows, 28 of them are gone. Yeah. 2 of them are going to keep the lights on. And Simpsons, the amount of cash that show brought in from the merchandise and everything else, I don't think Fox would be around today, even though I know most of it Disney has. I don't think there's an Avatar or a Titanic without The Simpsons.
Right. Wow. I thought you were going to say, you're going to paraphrase Predator and say something like, if it gives milk, we can milk it.
So, yeah, he's a better joke writer than I do.
There you go. Yes, of course. Everyone knows that. I was reading this article. It's a few years old from Vulture. They were talking about how any article like this draws my attention because of our podcast focusing on the 1980s. But it was like why the 1980s was the golden age for TV, and it talked about how many of the shows we have today benefit from these predecessors in the 1980s, and Simpsons among them. But in the article, it also points out how in the 1980s we had shows that were crass, that reminded me of maybe what The Simpsons in Married with Children did, but they failed miserably. Talking about Dabney Coleman was on 2 of them, including Buffalo Bill and Slap Maxwell, which touched on social issues, but from this kind of maybe Archie Bunker way, but not as elegant as Archie Bunker. How is it that Simpsons succeeds where other shows that even around that time were failing, that were also trying to be edgier?
It's the writing. It's the writing. It's the writing. Yep. They spent here. I mean, this is not only my favorite thing that I learned while working on the Simpsons show, but it's one of the things, if you look at all the shows we make, talking about how these things from He-Man and My Little Pony and Hello Kitty to Star Wars, if you look at what almost all of them have in common, and I can't even think of an example that proves me wrong of the work we've done, by the way. I know there's lots of examples that are different than what I'm saying. They all come out of nowhere, or they were allowed to exist because something else was going on. The greatest description of this phenomenon I've ever seen, if I said this on the last episode, I apologize. You can still see on YouTube when Steve Jobs introduced the iPod at a Macworld. It is did we talk about this?
I don't recall.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
No.
It is a 90-minute speech of him introducing products. He spends about 70 seconds talking about the iPod. The majority of the 90 minutes is talking about a printer and a wireless camera. Neither product would be for sale 24 months later. And the thing that would literally not only save the company, but I would argue change our entire speed. There's no, anyway, I won't get into politics, but let's just say having a camera on them 24/7 that can shoot 4K. I believe that is, in my opinion, positively changed the world. None of that happens without the iPod.
Sure.
So Simpsons was the same thing. You had this huge director, what do you call it? James L. Brooks, and his feature deal, he had done a 4-picture deal. 2 of the 4 movies won Oscars. One of them got nominated. Some of the most profitable films of all time in Fox history. His deal is up. The Fox studio wants to keep him. So while he's trying to close his deal and Fox is trying to get his next 4 movies, By the way, fun fact, the next 4 movies, at least 3 of them lost money. None of them were Oscar nominated. But in order to get the deal done, Brooks basically said to Fox, you want me and my movies? Greenlight that cartoon. So you look at what Fox spent on those 4 movies. Let's say each one of them all in was about, let's say $75 million. So they spent $300 million to make movies, and they got a franchise that conservatively probably throws off $2.5 to $5 billion a year in profit.
Wow.
Yeah.
But it was because of James L. Brooks.
And talking about James L. Brooks, and just like the Star Wars documentary, it's really cool how many myths you raise and then dispel, because in some of them, I was vaguely familiar with, including the story about Matt Groening, the creator of The Simpsons, coming up with the doodle right before he goes in to pitch the idea. That was pretty cool. I love the way you take these turns too. You set up like, yep, that's what we know. That's what it is. No, that's not it.
And it's baloney. Here's the real story.
But my favorite example of that happened literally the first time we even tried to make a show like this was Star Wars, when we were interviewing the Kenner lawyer. And the Kenner lawyer, like, I remember this was like almost 6 years ago. I remember it like it was 5 seconds ago, where he was like, well, George didn't make any money from the toys. And we're like, you mean he made all his money from the toys, not the movies, right? That's a myth I had grown up on.
Yeah.
All of us had.
Absolutely.
And he was like, no. He only got 2.5%. And I remember being like, I said to him, I go, sir, with respect, there's no way that's true. And he's like, well, I brought the contract with me. And we're literally sitting there.
I have receipts.
Office, exactly, in Cincinnati.
Yep.
And he was right.
Yeah.
And that was how we learned to do that quote unquote trick where I feel like we're bad documentarians if we're not recognizing a major myth and either supporting it or dispelling it. So that's what we try to do.
Well, that's the thing too, Brian. It seems like you say we're bad documentarians, and you could debate that one way or the other. I would argue that you're not a pure documentarian. You're an entertainment documentarian.
Yeah, by the way, I did not say we were bad. Now I understand why we laughed at
If right.
What I meant to say was we don't want to be.
No, right. I know what you mean. Right. One of my point is it's an entirely new genre that you have created that is, it's equal parts, because I'm a documentary just junkie. I'll watch a documentary about a garbage documentary because it's a documentary. I just love true stories. But this is something, if you don't like documentary, you can love these shows that Nacelle creates. And if you're not interested in the thing that we're talking about, we talked about Barbie with the Toys Who Made Us. It doesn't matter if you like Barbie. There's entertainment in the documentary that is an entirely new beast that it's blossoming. I mean, we'll talk about more stuff later, but it's really blossoming, and it's resonating with people more and more and more.
You're very kind, but yeah, I do feel like I'm an entertainer first. But we tell the truth. So, I mean, if we're going to find any bad stuff, we're going to put it in the show. So, I mean, we don't lie. We're not making propaganda. But yeah, I do believe we're making entertainment. And that's largely based on a philosophy. He's a famous comedian, and I'm always torn. Like, am I name dropping and I look like a Hollywood asshole, or am I giving credit to who deserves it? But I will give him credit. Craig Ferguson said this to me about a show we sold to History Channel called Join or Die. When we were pitching the show, every pitch, the way he described the show was, we are wrapping the spinach in ice cream. And that informs everything we make, because we sold that show before Toys That Made Us. And if you look at the original deck that we sent to Netflix, that's the opening line of the deck for what would become Toys That Made Us, is that whole, we like to wrap our spinach in ice cream.
Yeah. It's to that extent, I think I said this to John, maybe when we talked to you last time, was I think the real test is we need you to remake like a Ken Burns documentary, take Civil War or something like that, and see if I'd watch it, because Ken Burns, fantastic filmmaker. Unlike John and yourself, I lose interest. It gets a little...
There are a few documentarians that I revere, probably only 2, and he's one of the 2. Sure. So, I mean, no offense. No, I'm not offended, and I sure as hell doubt he is. But it'd be interesting to do. I'm a huge history buff.
Yeah.
So we do have something that I'm probably going to greenlight next year about one of the most obscure presidents in U.S. history, and there's absolutely nothing funny about it.
Okay.
Chester A. Arthur.
Oh.
But it's
Wow.
it's a story that if I told you what happened, at least one of you would probably be tearing up. And I'm curious to see what kind of style we would use for that, because I would want it to be entertainment first.
Yeah.
Sure.
Oh, and the big challenge has got to be you have no contemporary folks to, cut to and back and forth. And
it's funny you say that. I said earlier, we've only started pre-production and stopped once on anything. And it was what is it? What's the big famous Christmas movie?
A Christmas Story?
No, not A Christmas Story. That's what I have stuck in my head.
It's a Wonderful Life?
It's a Wonderful Life. Thank you. That was the problem.
yeah. Oh, no.
Where literally the showrunner came to me and she's like, who are we interviewing? And I was like, well, what's the problem? She's like, as best as we can tell, this is verbatim. She goes, as best as we can tell, there is one person alive who had anything to do with the movie. That's the good news.
Wow.
The bad news, by the time the movie came out, that person was 4. So I'm not sure how much he remembers.
Wow.
We were like, check, please.
Wow. And that movie has a rich history too, how it worked its way through the studio and how it got promoted. But there's no meat on the bone. What do you work with? Right. I can only imagine.
It's technically multi-generational, but I would argue it's actually not.
So folks should definitely check this out. Plenty of twists and turns and stuff you didn't know about Simpsons. Again, like Brian said, you don't have to be a fan. You'll be a fan afterwards.
Yeah.
So we've got the finale coming up this Wednesday, November 9th. What do we expect from this last episode? More surprises, more revelations?
Yeah, we bring it home. There's 4 plot lines over the course of all 6 episodes, and we close them up, just like we did with Star Wars. And I don't know if you heard or not, but as you asked, what's next? We did announce we got picked up for season 3. So season 3 comes out Q1. I don't know what month or anything, but I do know it's Q1. And that topic, you're going to be like, huh? What? Trust me?
Okay.
Trust me.
Mm-hmm.
Fast and Furious.
Huh? Wow.
Oh, really?
My example for 5 years of me going from no interest to being a lunatic fan has been He-Man. It has now been replaced by Fast and Furious.
Okay.
It is like you would not believe the story behind those films.
Before you said what it was, I was thinking to myself, well, it has to be something that has an iconic circle, because the cover art, there was a film can and then there was the pink donut. You got a tire, I imagine, for season
John,
3.
you're good, man. I never want to play Trivia Pursuit against you. You're good.
All right, so while we've got you here, a couple things, another minute. Look, we're excited also as fans of the 1980s that you've now, one of the toys you've turned to, because you've done this, you've done this before and you continue to do this. But the latest pre-order is for Sectaurs.
Yes.
Characters from the world of Symbion.
Yeah,
we've talked about this. We've talked about it a couple times on our show, because the cartoon and the backstory that supports these characters is fucking bonkers.
It's twisted. It is absolutely, yeah.
Bonkers.
Should not have been for kids.
Doesn't get more bonkers. And by the way, it's not just a cartoon. Read the story on the back of the box. You just read that and imagine being 9 years old and being like, I know I'm only 9, but what?
Yeah. And it's kind of funny too. Maybe it was because of the fear of nuclear war in the 1980s that we would be attracted to these dystopian type of worlds. I don't know. But for Nacelle, why Sectaurs? Just like The Simpsons, how is it that you arrive at that product?
It's toys. We use it. We're not trying to do a Mount Rushmore thing or a multi-generational thing with toys. Yep. We are trying to find things that have a rabid fan base. So we need that to justify the cost of making one of these figures.
Yeah.
But our goal, if we succeed, which it's yet. By the way, our first toy, RoboForce, this morning, less than an hour ago, literally went on the truck from the factory to the port in China. So Sectaurs is about 4 months behind it, but you just need that rabid fan base, and then you have to try and build on top of it. So the amount of RoboForce we've sold clearly indicates we have exceeded its fan base in a traditional way.
Right.
So Sectors, you look on eBay, what are the prices? You can see, like, if Thundercats is $80 a figure for good condition out of the box, and Sectors is $390 out of the box, good condition, you can start to figure out what that fan base is. This may surprise you. I go to conventions quite a bit.
Oh.
You see people in a Sectors costume on Halloween. Like I was in New York Comic Con a couple weeks ago, and I saw people dressed like Sectors. So you just go with your gut. And then, we have a pretty large network now of mom and pop toy stores that we built our own distribution arm, and we talk to them. So, it's over 200. Actually, I think it's over 300 stores now. We'll take a poll, an unofficial poll. We'll call 50 stores. Hey, if we called you about Sectors on a scale of 1 to 10, would you be excited? And if you ask 50 stores and 45 say anything above a 7, it'll probably work.
Well, we look forward also to seeing the glove at some point with the spider.
We will almost definitely be doing it. We announced Wave 2 almost more than 6 months early. Yeah. That's how fast Wave 1 is selling.
Very good. Well, Brian, we'll be sure to tell folks to watch the finale. Look, if you haven't seen it yet, you can stream all of it right now on Vice TV, and it's easy to get. I sign on to Vice. It asks me what my TV provider is, and I use Hulu, so odds are you're able to watch it. And you can stream the whole thing and see the final episode. This is Wednesday, November 9th. Icons on Earth, The Simpsons. Thank you so much, Brian, for joining us again.
As always, a lot of fun. Thank you both.
We could really talk to Brian lots of times because so many of the products he creates are things we love. I'm glad we got to talk to him about the Sectors, too, because we talked about this so many times on this show.
I would like to talk just about the Sectors with him. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure he knows way more about it than even we do, since he had to dig into it to make the figures. Yeah, he's amazing.
I didn't get to ask him. I think I read online that the scale of the figures that they're selling now, Nacelle company has, and you could pre-order them, matches the scale of the originals. So if you have a playset, a vintage playset, you could actually just integrate these. Not necessarily play with them, but in a diorama or something like that.
You know what I worry about, though, is I love the remaking them from I can get access to them, but I worry about remaking them from a damaging the collector market, because people have paid hundreds of dollars for something, and now it's available again. So as long as it's clearly differentiated that this is the remake and not, I guess it's fine. But there will be collectors that'll be upset that there's new stuff on the market that it'll increase interest, but might devalue the rarity or the attractiveness of having the old one. If you just want one and don't care if it's vintage.
I see.
Anyway.
So that's the show.
And our show is brought to you every week, thanks in part to our early adopters like Kathy Burke, Rick Parker, and Karen Flieger. And thank you especially to our Secret of Our Success level Patreon supporters, John Henderson, Craig Coletta, John Kaminsky, Marcus Taylor, and Tony Great.
I just realized I say that's the show, but that's not really the show. I mean, it's the denouement of the show has now begun. But I didn't want to say that. Yeah, I'm trying to work as many French things in since that earlier.
Thank you.
But hey, special thanks to those guys who are our Patreon supporters. But there's plenty of ways to support the show. You can go to 1980snow.com/support to find out how. There's plenty of free ways to support the show, including just keeping our spirits up.
Yes.
Or helping us create content by just sharing your words, your thoughts, your messages, your experiences related to the show material. Or anything related to the 1980s, for that matter.
Do you have any tangible example of somebody actually doing that?
I do. Christina on Instagram writes. She writes with regard to our 900 numbers episode that we did in connection with the Spooky 900.
Yeah.
When we were questioning whether folks had actually, other than me, had called these numbers when they were kids. Yes, 1-900 spell it was my total jam. You would call the number and they would give you a word to spell, and you'd have to spell it with the letters under the numbers on your phone.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
Unbeknownst to my parents, I was quite the player, although I never won the grand prize. When the phone bill came, my mom called the phone company and said the lines must have been crossed. My parents didn't have to pay the bill as long as they blocked 900 numbers from being dialed, and that was the end of that.
Wow.
So no words with Q or X because those aren't on the phone, right?
Oh.
On a traditional phone, not on a non-cell phone.
I'm trying to
Q and
remember
X, I think, are not on there. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's
or
ringing
maybe
a
it's
bell.
not X. I think Q for sure. I'd have to look. I'd look at an old phone.
So
Anyway.
no, was it Quixolotl?
Quick
not on there.
You can take your big Scrabble words and go home.
Or because they're charging you by the minute, that's the only word that's on there.
Right. Yeah. What the? Yeah. Maybe X. I think X, Y, and Z. Maybe X is. A Q is not. I think for sure. Anyway.
And the kids are looking for the letter, and the message is like, "No, take your time, kids. Don't
Try
panic.
again.
It's unlimited
Try
time." All right. Well,
No stress.
You have 24 minutes left to guess.
Hey, we also heard from, well, you know what? I wanted to share this message because so I met this guy, Tim, and his brother, Stefan. Anyway, these two guys worked over at the inaugural Ohio Fan Fest earlier this year. So I met them both there because they do work with the folks that, the creators of these shows, who also have created, the guys who created that show also created a horror show that they do down in Pittsburgh also. Anyway, Tim and his brother, great guys, and Tim has his own couple of podcasts, Dead on the Bases and Dead on Movie Reviews. That you should definitely check out. But he also has a website, otherworldlyculture.com, and he was kind enough to share the couple of articles that came out about me recently and wrote a little message here. It's always great to see a podcaster that isn't working for public radio or delivering true crime get some recognition. Congratulations, Will.
I love it.
That's so cool.
So check out Tim's website, otherworldly.com. You can find out about his podcasts. And finally, we've heard from, and this is really cool, Roey Shamir. Now, if you listen to my interview with Paul Robb from Information Society about how he created the music and co-founded the band and plays the keyboards, Roey Shamir was a name that Paul mentioned as being instrumental in helping develop the iconic sound of their debut album, Information Society.
Wow.
Roey writes, Roey's written to the row again. Roey writes, greetings and salutations. I enjoyed listening to your podcast with Paul Robb. It was nice hearing the discussion, including artists I recorded and mixed from that time period. Nice of Paul to shout me out. Some extra info for you. So he mentions, just like Paul had shared, that the result, the sound that resulted was this combination of all these guys working together, including Paul, and we mentioned Fred Marr, and Roey working to create this sound, including there's this sound on What's on Your Mind. So, you know, it's sort of the break of the song. You've got all these samples, you know, destruction,
Yep.
destruct, and then you have this this choppy sound. And most folks thought they had a person playing electric guitar.
Okay.
It's not an electric guitar. And Roey explains what it is. He said it was created by me at Mixdown using a Mundane Rhodes pad that Paul originally played, that Roey put through a Rockman sustainer rack unit and then tightly gated using the high-end percussion and the hi-hat as an external trigger. So,
Oh, cool.
I never noticed that. Now when I listen to this song, you'll notice that sound is cut off in sync with the hi-hat.
That's cool.
So you have a way of programming, you know, it's certainly back then it was more challenging, but you could say, all right, I want this element to control this other element. Now it's easy. So easy.
Okay.
But anyway, he also writes that he worked with Tim Capello, who I mentioned on that show that I've been trying to get on to talk about saxophones. And he's the sexy sax man from the Lost Boys.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks for writing, Roey. We appreciate it. So, hey, okay, that was it.
Does
hey,
Roey have an in with the sexy sax man? Can you get him on the show?
Hey.
Call in favor.
I think I wrote back to Roey and said, you know, we're having, if I can only get a hold of him.
Okay.
If only.
Come on, Roey. Help us out, brother.
Well, I love hearing what people are thinking after they listen to the episodes.
Good. So look, this is what I need you to do, guys. Please write to us, because then Kat will come to the recording session to hear what you write, even when having the opportunity to see something Duran Duran related.
Hey, I just thought of another enabler that I should mention.
Hey guys, we will talk to you next time.
One of our 1980s now listeners. Nathan.
All right. Sorry. Hey guys, we will talk to you, I meaning John and I, next time on 1980s Now.
I'm fired.
Bye-bye.
podcast is part of the 80s Ruled Network. Visit the 80s Ruled on Facebook for more 1980s awesomeness.